Victor Perez, Ryan Gaynor, and Lindon Barton. Three names that I did not have anywhere on my radar before today, guys. And I am so embarrassed to admit that to you guys today, but it's the truth. And I think that moving forward, they will stay with me, and I really believe that they will stay with you as well. Hi, my name is Yessie, and welcome to the Autism Advocacy Army podcast, where we talk about everything that has anything to do with advocating ferociously for those on the autism spectrum. I am so honored to have you spend some time with me today. I hope that this podcast serves you well. I do want to give you some sort of an advisory today. This episode is a hard one. We're going to be discussing a heavy subject that involves loss of life, tragic loss of life at the hands of law enforcement, for some as young as 13 years old. I did try to do my best in omitting the cases of even younger children than 13 years old, which was really difficult because it almost felt so pertinent and crucial to this subject. But I also feel like we are so desensitized in our exposure to trauma and to tragedy in today's world that I didn't really want to play a role in exposing you guys to it anymore. I even opted against including footage and images for those that are watching on YouTube and not just streaming the podcast wherever you like to get your podcast information and stream from. So without further ado, I want to dive right in. If you hear my chair, guys, I'm so sorry. I usually don't notice that my chair makes noise because this is usually where I just do my makeup, and yeah, I just noticed that my chair makes some noise, so I apologize. Maybe as the show progresses, I will invest in a better chair, but for now, she's just gonna have to do. Anyways, I woke up this morning, thank you, Jesus, and walked downstairs to make my morning coffee, as we do. My husband had just dropped off our son at school, and he just had a really sad look on his face. And I was like, oh my goodness, what? You dread seeing someone walk in from just dropping off your child with a sad look on their face. You just think they're the worst, right? And though something really bad had happened, he informed me of Victor Perez, how he was a 17-year-old teenager who had been shot 9 times by local law enforcement responding to a 911 call by a neighbor earlier today. It just put us in a state of pause. Our son with autism was still home this morning at the time that we were discussing this in the kitchen, and he was actually having breakfast a few feet away from us. And we just both looked over at him at the same time and just got like so teary-eyed, because I think the reality that our son is getting bigger and stronger, it occurred to us, and we've had incidences where Raphael is suffering an episode, and he could be seen as aggressive, but it's not aggressiveness, it's not aggression, it's not malintent to harm. It is an episode that he is going through where his world, his environment has just taken a toll and maybe even caused him to experience some pain and loss of control. And guys, when I say episode, I want to also clarify that what I mean by an episode is what others might more commonly refer to as a meltdown. I personally do not like the use of this word, and I will not be using it as I discuss these 3 individuals and their tragedies today. I think that it's a complete lack of respect to what people on the autism spectrum actually experience and what they go through during these times when they're having an episode. I equate it to someone who has perhaps epilepsy, when lights become too much and trigger them to have a seizure or multiple seizures. This is more often referred to as episodes for them. I don't really understand why we're not using these terms to also describe what people on the autism spectrum experience when their environment becomes overstimulating and overwhelming to their brains and triggers them. So, yeah, out of respect for this community and to hopefully influence change in the use of the word meltdown, I'm going to continue to use the word episode. And if you're a parent out there and you have felt that you have to use the word meltdown, even though it goes against everything you feel inside and has this negative connotation, you're just like, well, everybody else uses this word, so it must be the word that is appropriate. You don't have to stick with that. I'm not going to. I am going to use the term episode. And moving forward, I have been more vocal about asking people around me to use that term when describing what people go through on the spectrum when they are experiencing overstimulation and sensory overload, which at times causes pain. I even experts in the field, I think that we need to call for them to actually modify that and change that to be more appropriate for people on the spectrum. So there's my little rant about the use of the word meltdown and why you will not be hearing it on this show. You will be hearing the use of the word episodes, and especially in respect to people that lost their lives or their lives are tragically altered at the hands of law enforcement. Now, this is not a townspeople grab your pitchforks and let's go after police departments type of podcast. I am not doing that. I have a great amount of respect for people that bear a badge. I've had to call 911 in the past myself, and I've had positive outcomes and good experiences, and I'm so grateful for the people that came to help me and protect me in a situation of emergency. So please do not take me as one of those people who wants to defund the police or go after police departments or police officers with like aggression. If anything, I want to offer some sort of influence to state like, hey, we need to do better. And this is how you can do better. And this is coming from a mother of a boy with autism. And from someone who's very immersed in this community and speaks a lot with a lot of people within that community of our concerns, our fears, and what we would like to see happening. So that is the angle that I'm coming into this from. Definitely not a witch hunt, if you will. So if that's the kind of show that you're interested in, this ain't it. Sorry, babes. But this morning, April 8th, 2025, a Pocatello neighbor resident called 911 in reference to Victor Perez. He saw something that was concerning, looked dangerous. He saw a young man wielding a kitchen knife with two bystanders nearby who, from his perspective, looked unarmed, which they were. The bystanders, as I've gathered, was Victor's grandfather and his mother, who were at the scene trying to de-escalate it. They themselves had not called 911. The neighbor was doing what he thought neighbors do in situations like this and just trying to prevent a tragedy. But unfortunately, a tragedy is exactly what happened. And not at all to blame this neighbor. The neighbor did not do anything wrong. So do not try to figure out who this neighbor is and come for them. They did the right thing. I think in their shoes, I would have also called 911. Now, it isn't clear whether the neighbor was able to disclose to the dispatch if they knew that Victor was autistic or on the spectrum, or if they were even very familiar with the family at all. That information has not been released, nor do I think that it has been even inquired upon at this point in time. The family hasn't made any mention of this at all either, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of anger towards this neighbor for calling law enforcement either. A lot of the anger and anguish is really aimed at the law enforcement officers who opted to use such lethal force instead of resorting to effective and less lethal methods. So the police arrive. As multiple units. I counted 4 in the video that I watched this morning, and as many as up to 6 officers stood outside the property on the opposite side of what was a chain link fence that was about. I mean, if I was standing next to it, I'm 5'2", and it'd probably be about like torso height. My torso height. But for these police officers, it was probably about like, waist high. And they stood quite a distance away from where Victor was. I would guesstimate that they were a good 6 to 8 feet away from him. Not yards and yards and yards away, but enough distance to where they could have properly assessed the situation. And there were enough of them to where the threat wasn't so, like, there was nobody there outnumbered. Let me put it to you that way. If anybody was outnumbered, it was Victor. They were shouting commands to him all at once with guns drawn, okay? And Victor did not listen. He did not cooperate according to law enforcement. Victor's aunt has spoken to the media today and given more insight on why that could have happened. And according to her, though Victor is a 17-year-old who looks like a normal person and has the stature and the size of a man, intellectually, he is about the age of a 5-year-old. Could you imagine a 5-year-old standing 6-8 feet away from 4, 5, 6 cops, guns drawn, and they're all just yelling at you? Would you listen? Would that 5-year-old listen? Would they react by just doing what they're being told in that moment? No. I don't even know if I would have the capacity at that, in such a extreme stress situation to respond to what they're shouting at me. I mean, who knows if you would even be able to actually hear what they're shouting at you if they're all shouting at the same time. So major problems there already, right off the bat. In the few minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and I'm being gracious at giving them 3 minutes, okay? Maybe in the 3 minutes that they tried to get Victor to drop the weapon and him failing to do so, they decided that they were going to reach into their holsters, grab their guns if they didn't already have them drawn, which some of them already did have them drawn before they even tried to communicate and de-escalate the situation. And you could also see this in the videos for yourselves. But again, I will advise you that if it's going to be triggering for you to watch something like that, just opt to not watch it. I will try to give my very best description of what took place to you guys here. But yeah, it's so disturbing. So they opened fire on him and they shot him 9 times to the extreme where they had to amputate his leg, and he died on the scene. Paramedics that came to render aid and first responders that rendered aid immediately did bring him back to life. And then I think I read in one of the reports that he did actually flatline again, was brought back again, and now is on life support in critical condition. The likelihood of him surviving what happened today is slim to none, guys. The devastation of his loved ones, his mother, gosh, his poor mom. It is like so extreme. My heart is just breaking for this poor woman. In the video, you can see that she is like standing behind him and like pulling at the back of his shirt, trying to get his attention and maybe like get his focus on her. I don't know if that would have helped, but in times where my son is having an episode and he is just checked out and I could see that he's going to maybe act aggressively or try to harm himself or others, I do say to him, eyes on mommy, Raph, look at me. And him refocusing when he does actually like captivate what I'm asking him to do, and he eyes on mommy, he looks at me and we engage, and I'm able to get him to just cooperate with me, engage with me, we de-escalate. This is the kind of training that the law enforcement in Pocatello, Idaho, are in desperate need of. And this is very basic skills, guys. What they really need is far more extensive and a lot more professional. But even to just have the most basic of skills on how to approach someone with autism or on the spectrum. I think we're up to like 7 different autism or spectrum disorders now. So Asperger's, classic autism, Rett syndrome. I mean, off the top of my head, these are the 3 that come to mind. But ADHD, there's so many, and I will do a whole other show on that another time. But yeah, if they were trained on how to respond to the different varieties, how to detect the signs, right? Because visually, people who have autism, it's not obvious. You can't see autism. There's behaviors that will indicate that someone could be on the spectrum, but in a state of emergency, you do need special training to be able to decipher those behaviors and respond accordingly in a critical situation, right? The Pocatello, Idaho Police Department clearly does not do that sort of training. I don't think they do any sort of training in respect to this at all. And it is just so unfortunate that it is at the cost of a 17-year-old young man losing his leg and potentially losing his life, and his family being forever impacted by this tragedy. And not just his family. Could you imagine what his neighbors are going through? And other people in the community, what they're thinking right now if they have a child with autism or a loved one with autism and they ever are in an emergency situation. I mean, the likelihood of them dialing 911 now to ask for help is probably something that they're going to second guess, or they're going to think about it long and hard before they pick up the phone to dial 911 for protection, because odds are that it will just end in tragedy for them as well. That's so messed up that we cannot go to sleep rest assured that the people that we call for help are actually going to come to our rescue and render protection, as opposed to more danger and tragedy and death. It goes against what law enforcement is there to do, which is to protect and serve. So do better, Idaho. Do better. And I don't know if that is just in the, smaller rural suburban small towns of Idaho, and maybe in like the bigger cities like Boise and Meridian, Caldwell. Forgive me if my geographical knowledge of Idaho is lacking, but maybe those bigger areas, bigger cities, more densely populated, more affluence, if you will, financial affluence. Perhaps there is better training, better funding, because it always seems to revert back to, money. But perhaps they're doing a better job. I hope so, for the sake of, children in those areas. But if you do live in Idaho and you're like scared and you are just contemplating whether in the future, if you need the police, if you can actually rely on them, if you can actually call them, here's a few things that you can do to avoid an outcome like Victor and his family's today. First of all, be very vocal about someone in your home having autism. There are stickers, decals, lawn signs that you can order on autism. They're fairly affordable and inexpensive, and they arrive to you in a timely fashion. So, girl, I know you are on Amazon. I know you be scrolling and you be shopping, and you got probably 206 things in your shopping cart and you're safe for later right now. I know I do. But get yourself on Amazon and order some of these stickers and lawn signs and let people know that someone in your home has autism. At least for first responders to know when they come, they pull up to your house, or if they're entering your house, that it is made apparent and you're making that effort. It's a small effort that can have such a big difference, that someone that you love and lives with you, resides with you, has autism, and you're like, a lawn sign, why would I need that one? Because look, when they come charging in, if they don't see that sticker on your door or on the window next to your door, that lawn sign is oftentimes going to be what they see, whether it's near your walkway or by a fence, or even if you get a sign and you put it onto your, like if you have the chain link fence like Victor's family, you put a sign on your fence. If the neighbors had been aware that Victor was on the spectrum and that he had autism, I firmly believe, I really do wholeheartedly believe that the outcome for Victor and his family today would have been far better. I might be giving too much credit to their law enforcement in Pocatello right now, and thinking that these signs are like going to, fix everything. I really, honestly, I don't think that they fix everything, but I think that it is a step in the right direction. And until these law enforcement agencies in these smaller towns take it upon themselves to do better, right, as they should, but perhaps it's going to maybe be a minute before they actually implement better practices and training for every single officer that they have. In the meantime, guys, as parents and as guardians of someone on the spectrum, it's our responsibility to keep them safe, to do these extra things, whether you agree with it or not, and you feel like, why should I have to do that? They should just be doing their job. Well, guess what? They don't love that person in your house like you love them, okay? If they answer a 911 call and they, at the end of the day, feel like they did what they were supposed to do, that they responded correctly. I mean, the Pocatello, Idaho Police Department right now is defending themselves. They are saying that they acted correctly, that they did nothing wrong, you guys. So if that is the mentality and that's the mind state of these police officers, to defend themselves and protect themselves instead of taking ownership and admitting that there is room for progress and they should have done better, then we have to, at this point in time, be super realistic and aware of the current climate and say, okay, I am going to take these extra steps so they cannot say that they did not know that someone in this home had autism, that someone in this house needed a different approach to answering a 911 call or a crisis. I even have them on my car, guys. And yes, I get made fun of for having them because it's this bright yellow sticker that calls so much attention. But hey, that there is someone in my vehicle with autism. And if, God forbid, I'm ever in a car accident and I am unconscious and cannot tell first responders, hey, my child has autism, if they're scared, if they feel out of control right now and they're overstimulated or whatever because they just experienced a trauma and something so super scary like a car accident, they might try to bite you. They might try to kick you. They might not respond to you very well. So having that sticker right next to where they sit in my vehicle helps them to be able to identify that this is a situation that needs to be handled accordingly to someone who is on the spectrum. So yeah, you might not like it. You might think that they're ugly. They're not. They're actually kind of cute. And you might feel like people might judge you or look at you a certain way. I can assure you that that's really not the case. I moved into this house that I'm living in right now for the next few weeks before I move across the country. But I moved into this house a few years ago. And when I moved into this home, I went to all my neighbors and I said, hey, my name is Yessie. And I have a child who's on the spectrum. I have two other wonderful children as well, but my child who is on the spectrum at that time, he's nonverbal. And I just want to let you know, like, if you try to say hi to him or you see him out and about and you see some unusual behaviors, it's not that he is misbehaving or it's not that he's a bad boy. He has autism. So a normal, typical day for you looks completely different for us. My neighborhood has been super supportive and embraced us in the best way when it comes to that. They've even been like an extra set of eyes sometimes when they catch something that I don't catch. My son started having elopement behaviors when we moved into this house that he didn't have before. So my neighbor across the street actually had to bring him back to me twice. And thank God for them, and thank God that they knew he was autistic, because they handled the situation beautifully and extended so much grace to me. And I quickly realized that I had to take stronger safety measures to keep my son indoors. But yeah, these are the things that you can do if you are in the Pocatello, Idaho area, or in rural areas where you think that your law enforcement might also be lacking of this sort of training. Get those stickers, get those signs that let people know that someone with special needs lives in your home, because it could save their life. That it comes down to that, guys. It could save their life. Get them on your cars, get them a medical those medical ID bracelets. These are all things that need to be like a standard checklist for parents who have kids on the spectrum. And that's why I'm doing this podcast and reaching out during this avenue, through this avenue, I should say, because I feel like there is not in existence like this book, this checklist that says, okay, so because the whole world is not quite accommodating yet to a person with autism, these are the extra things that you have to do as a parent raising a child with autism in order to keep them safe, to keep them healthy, and, keep them alive. I think that when it comes to also dialing 911, your neighbors and your relatives being told, please, if you ever call 911 because there's an emergency at my house, even if it's something that doesn't involve violence, like say like a fire or whatever, please inform first responders and dispatch that someone in my home has autism, because them knowing that they're coming into a situation where someone has special needs or is on the spectrum completely changes how they come into that situation and how they approach it. So it makes a world of difference. Something so small that changes everything. If you're unsure if you're capable of doing this, I hope you will sleep on it and contemplate what's best for you and your family, because it's hard. It really is, especially if you're early in your autism journey and you haven't processed all your feelings about it, and you're experiencing like that grief that comes in the earlier stages of getting your diagnosis. I get it. It is so hard to just openly tell people about your child's diagnosis or your loved one's diagnosis. But when it comes down to their safety, this is a critical step that we just have to accept that we have to do, that we have to take while the world is improving for our loved ones on the spectrum. Ryan Gaynor out of Apple Valley in San Bernardino here in LA in California, unfortunately lost his life March 11th, 2024, when a loved one in his home called 911 asking for help because he was having a pretty intense episode on this day. There is no real clarity on what triggered him on this day, but he was, I guess, causing a lot of damage to the home. At one point, he decided that he was going to pick up a gardening tool and start wielding it about. This is where they said that he caused the most damage to the house. And when he locked in on his sister and was trying to go after her, that's when everyone got increasingly more afraid, because this gardening tool, I mean, guys, it looked scary. Yeah, it was something where I would be super frightened. To better describe it for those of you listening, it was like a 4-foot long pole. At the end of it, it had like a really sharp blade. I don't know what kind of gardening tool this is. Like, unless you have like a field that you need to like plow like corn or something, I really don't know what you would be using this for. I've never seen it in my life. The blade was about this big, which if you're not watching on YouTube and you're listening along wherever you stream your podcasts, I'm going to say a good like 14 inches big. Like, this is a big blade at the end of this pole. And he was wielding this around. Now, he didn't actually try to attack anybody with it, but he was kind of just swinging it around carelessly. And he had like locked in on his sister. So the relative that called 911 did say that it seemed like he was going to try to attack his sister and they needed help. Law enforcement arrives to the residence in Apple Valley, and within a couple of minutes, you guys, they opened fire on Ryan, and Ryan was fatally shot and lost his life right there at his own home. A couple things that could have totally changed this outcome. Had the relative said Ryan is autistic, he's on the spectrum, he's experiencing an episode, could have changed the outcome. Law enforcement in this situation clearly did not respond appropriately given the whole scenario. I mean, they acted so fast and they resorted to lethal force when they had the opportunity to use a taser. Some of you listening might think, well, hey, he had this like weapon and he was going to go after someone with it and he could have really done some damage. Yeah, I think a taser would have been sufficient though to stop him. They had the distance and they had the opportunity to reach for a taser instead of a gun. They didn't. So this is what I mean, the sort of training that they need. There needs to be like a order of operations, if you will. Like taser, rubber bullets. If that fails and the person's still standing and they're still charging after you, then yeah, I guess use your gun. But for that to be the go-to and that, for them to be so trigger happy, it's just not acceptable. It's not applicable in any situation at all. Like, trigger happy cops just need to be trained better, period. This is such an issue. We're not calling 911 because we want you to come to our house and kill somebody in most cases. So, I guess I should go back on that because yeah, if you're calling 911, it could be because like someone is like coming into your house and like threatening your family. But Victor Perez's family or his neighbor did not call 911 because they wanted to see someone shot 9 times today. Ryan Gainer's family did not call 911 because they wanted to see him gunned down and fatally shot. In the case of Lindon Barton, his own mom called 911, but she was proactive and called for a crisis intervention unit. What she got was the crisis intervention unit did arrive, but also a nearby police officer who was not trained in how to respond in a scenario with someone who's on the spectrum. He was close to where the call was coming in from, and he, went to the call. In the case of 13-year-old Lindon Barton, he was running away from law enforcement. He was scared, and they shot him 6 times in the back. His ankles were crushed, his intestines destroyed, his bladder was severely damaged, his shoulders were injured beyond belief. Like, this boy was left a mess, and miraculously he is alive today. Thank you, Jesus, that Lindon survived this attack. I'm going to say this attack because he was running away. He was scared. The way that these officers responded was just completely so wrong. And his poor mother couldn't even be at his side at the hospital right away. I did reach out to her to try to speak with her and see if there was anything that she would like the public to know in regards to Lindon's case, which they are not even going to see justice for because the district attorney in their area, which is Salt Lake City, Utah, did thought that the police acted appropriately. That is infuriating. Now, Lindon's case did happen 4 years ago, and in the time that has passed, and talking with Salt Lake City, Utah police officials, they have responded to this case appropriately. They have implemented better practices. They have trained more. They have taken note of what happened in this case and trying to prevent it from ever happening again. When I talked to them about what parents can do to better work with law enforcement and prevent this from happening in the future, they said, please provide us with more information in regards to this specific individual. Triggers, what sort of diagnosis they have when you are calling. Now, Lyndon's mom did call for the right team to respond to her call. The crisis intervention unit deals specifically with calls involving people on the autism spectrum or special needs. They're equipped with social workers. But the fact that this other officer came running to the scene and he was the one who did things that shouldn't have been done that day is what really threw everything off. And they are learning from it. They are, instead of just having one crisis intervention unit that responds to these calls, they are going as far as training all of their officers, similarly to how the Modesto Police Department has responded to having a large community of autistic people. The Modesto Police Department, fun fact, is actually the first police department in the state of California to become a certified autism crisis center. That is super, super cool. They have invested in what they call Carter kits. These Carter kits are equipped with PEX cards. They have sensory toys in there. They have noise canceling headphones to reduce noise. The Modesto Police Department is even trained on how to recognize and distinguish behaviors of autism throughout this spectrum, which is super, super cool. That is so impressive to hear that their protocols are so influenced by recognizing, if they're not told by dispatch that this person might have autism when they arrive to this scene, that they, in general, try to create distance, which to them equals time, and time equals options. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Modesto Police Department. Kudos to you guys. I'm so, so proud of you guys. Thank you so much for your efforts, because though we cannot say that this is foolproof and that it will work 100% of the time, I think that it is such a beautiful model for the rest of the country to implement and to work with and say, let's be more like this community where they're trying to protect these individuals versus hurt them or kill them. When I talked to Lieutenant Joe Bottom today of the Modesto Police Department, he said that one of the most critical things that helps them to walk into a situation or arrive to a situation appropriately and handle it as best as possible is disclosing as much information about that individual. Again, like the Salt Lake City, Utah Police Department said, their triggers, their diagnosis. And this also comes back to me talking about letting your neighbors know about those things as well, because if they're calling 911 on your behalf, they need to be able to disclose that information to the dispatch so that they can relay that in turn to the police officers who are coming to render aid or to emergency medical services. This is where we do our part with law enforcement, while we hope and call for them to have better training through and through across the board in the entire nation. So Victor Perez, I hope for the best for you and your family, sweet boy. I'm so sorry about what April 8th, 2025 is going to mean for you and your family moving forward. Ryan Gaynor, may you rest in peace, and may your family get the justice that they so deserve. They are currently suing the Apple Valley Police Department in San Bernardino, and I really hope they win. I hope they get what is right through their lawsuit. And for the Barton family out of Salt Lake City, Utah, if nothing else, Lyndon's case has served to improve upon practices and policies in the police department of Salt Lake City, Utah. So hopefully they will just do the right thing, and this won't happen to another child. I'm so happy that Lindon is alive, that he has survived this. I hope that you guys can put it behind you. And for all of you watching, all of you listening, I hope that you will take the time to share this video, because this is one of those videos that can really save someone's life and make such a big difference. And just by putting some things on their radar that maybe they don't think about, because as an autism parent or a guardian, you're so spread thin, you're so overwhelmed by all the things you got to do. How do you fit it in and go to work and just try to take care of yourself and all that stuff? So I really believe that If we share this, if we spread the word, raise awareness, this can save someone's life, you guys. And I mean, that's ultimately what we all want to see. We want to see progress. We want to see more positive outcomes in these 911 calls. We want to see police all implementing a better protocol when it comes to a 911 call that has someone who's on the spectrum. But yes, it is critical that we do our part here until the police through the entire nation has gotten that sort of training, unfortunately. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And I am, again, so grateful that you have sat through, listened to what I had to say, heard the stories of these 3 individuals who deserved so much better, who deserved so much more, and did not deserve to either lose their lives or to suffer in this way. And I pray that you guys will find the time and find it in yourselves to spread the word, share this video. If you know law enforcement, share this with them too, because maybe they could even talk to their lieutenants and say, hey guys, this is happening a little bit too much. What can we do to be better and to prevent this in our community as well? So that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. I will be back for another episode here in a couple of days where we will try to talk about something a little bit more lighthearted, not so heavy, because this one was a big one, but it was so worthy of the time and attention that we took today to discuss it and to shed this light on it, and to call for change and protect our kids. Just protect our kids, man. All right, guys, take care. God bless and be safe. Bye.